Hello and welcome to Bibha Digital. In this video, we will explore how our AI-driven solutions are streamlining the HR process, from sourcing top talents to headhunting the best candidates and ensuring efficiency and precision at every step. So if we talk about the whole sourcing process, there are a lot of problems faced by the HR personnel. There are a lot of pain points. For example, there's a communication barrier. There is limited time. Often these calls are rushed, and then there is assessing technical skills. There is subjectivity and bias. There is a problem with candidates availability, the engagement, interest, verifying experience and validating them. So at times, what happens is candidates write a lot of fluff in their resume, and by the time they come to face discussions, it turns out it's bogus. It's a waste of time for the person, the employee who is interviewing these candidates, and it gets very difficult for an HR personnel who's calling these people to have technical knowledge about all these stuff, because they often receive a lot of requirements, different use cases, different tools, tech that they want the candidate to be well versed on, and it's very difficult for an HR to know everything, right? And apart from that, there is also a problem of understanding whether the candidate will culturally fit to the organization or not. There are technical issues, follow-up challenges, etc., etc. So we have developed a solution, typically which targets or solves this problem. We'll see that in the demo now. So I'm getting a call from the AI HR that we have developed, and we will talk to the HR. So this HR typically understands everything that has gone through in behind the scenes, and it prepares itself before going to the call.
Hello, this is Anuradha from Bibha Digital. This is regarding a well job opportunity at Bibha. Am I speaking with Prashant?
Yes, this is Prashant.
Hello, Prashant. Thank you for confirming. I apologize for the confusion earlier. I'm Anuradha calling from Bibha Digital regarding your application for the senior software engineer position. Do you have time to speak with me about your application?
Certainly, we can talk about it.
Great. Thank you for your time, Prashant. I'd like to discuss your experience and learn more about your interest in this role. Is that all right with you?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Excellent. Let's start by discussing your experience. Could you tell me about your experience with Java and Spring Boot, particularly in designing microservices?
So with Java, I have been working for over a decade, and Spring Boot I have experience over 8 years, and microservices as well. So I'm pretty good with all three of them.
Thank you for sharing that, Prashant. It's great to hear about your extensive experience with Java and Spring Boot, as well as your proficiency in microservices. To dive a bit deeper, could you give me a specific example of a microservices project you've worked on using Spring Boot? I'm particularly interested in how you approach the design and any challenges you faced during implementation.
Right. So when I joined here, I was exposed to a huge monolith that we had here, and we were facing some scaling challenges, and we decided to break it down into microservices. So yeah, that's how I got introduced to microservices here.
Thank you for sharing that experience, Prashant. It's interesting to hear about your transition from a monolithic architecture to microservices. That's a common challenge many organizations face. Could you tell me a bit more about how you approached breaking down the monolith? For example, what strategies did you use to identify service boundaries? And how did you handle data management across the new microservices?
Right. So since we had these scaling challenges, we decided to break down the monolith into microservices. We used Saga pattern here, and we started with the DAO layer. We broke down the database into smaller pieces, and then built it up bottom up from there.
Thank you for elaborating on that, Prashant. It's great to hear that you used the Saga pattern and took a bottom up approach starting with the data layer. That's a solid strategy for breaking down a monolith. Now, I'd like to ask about your experience with cloud platforms. How have you worked with cloud platforms like AWS in your previous roles?
So I have been working with AWS for over a decade, and I have also experience on. I also have experience on Azure. So yeah, if is there any specific question that you have for that?
That's impressive, Prashant. Ashant, a decade of experience with AWS and additional experience with Azure is certainly valuable. Given your extensive experience, could you tell me about a particularly challenging or complex project you worked on using AWS? I'm interested in hearing about the AWS services you utilized, any architectural decisions you made, and how you ensured scalability and reliability in the cloud environment.
Right. So we were earlier on EC2, and we were paying a lot of money because EC2 instances would run 24 by 7, and even though our application is getting traffic or not, we ended up paying for that. So we decided to use AWS Lambdas, which is pay per use basis. And apart from that, we have used a lot of, I have used a lot of AWS services. I'm familiar with S3, EC2, RDS, Aurora, EKS, MSK, Greengrass, IoT Core, etc.
Thank you for sharing that detailed experience, Prashant. Your transition from EC2 to Lambda for cost optimization is a great example of leveraging cloud services effectively. It's impressive to see your breadth of knowledge across various AWS services, including compute, storage, database, containerization, and IoT. Given your experience with Elastic Kubernetes service, I'd like to follow up on your containerization experience. Can you describe your experience with containerization technologies like Docker and Kubernetes?
Right.
Perhaps you could.
Right. So we use Docker in the lower environment. Typically, I write Docker Compose file to manage the dependencies, to run my application in the local. And for Kubernetes, I do not have access to the production Kubernetes because it's handled by the DevOps team. However, they expose the configurations to us via console. So we use console to enter the properties in Kubernetes.
Thank you for that detailed explanation, Prashant. Prashant, it's great to hear about your practical experience with Docker, especially using Docker Compose for local development environments. Your familiarity with Kubernetes configurations, even though you don't have direct production access, shows a good understanding of containerized deployments. Now, I'd like to ask about your experience with event driven architectures. Have you worked with systems using technologies like Apache Kafka? If so, could you describe a use case where you implemented such an architecture?
Right. I am very good with container. Sorry. Event-driven systems. I have worked with AWS Event Bridge. I have worked with Apache Kafka. I have worked with Apache Flink, and yeah, we use it as a message buffer to scale or handle the increased traffic that keeps coming in into our system. I'm also familiar with Apache Kafka Streams, Kafka Connect. I'm familiar with the configurations on the brokers, and everything as such.
That's excellent. Prashant, your experience with event driven systems, including AWS Event Bridge, Apache Kafka, and Apache Flink, is very impressive. Your understanding of using these technologies as message buffers for scalability shows a deep grasp of distributed systems architecture. Given your extensive experience, I'd like to explore your leadership and mentoring abilities. Could you give me an example of how you've mentored junior developers or contributed to architectural decisions in past projects? How do you approach ensuring code quality and implementing best practices in a team setting?
Right. So I get added as a reviewer to the code on GitHub, and I go through the code. I see for coverage, I see for unit tests well written, I see for the structure of the code, I check for modularity, and if there is anything, I just give a feedback to my peer or the juniors who have assigned me as a reviewer to the code, and ask them to get it done. And then it's an iterative process we go through, and eventually we approve this only, and until and unless we are not satisfied, we won't approve it.
Thank you for sharing your approach, Prashant. It's clear that you take code quality and mentorship seriously. Your process of thorough code reviews, focusing on test coverage, code structure, and modularity is excellent. It's great that you provide constructive feedback and engage in an iterative process to ensure high quality code. Now, I'd like to ask about your experience with agile development methodologies. Can you describe how you work within an agile
So we are
framework
in a
and
two
perhaps share?
week sprint cycle, and we follow all the agile sprint ceremonies, including retrospective, the story pointing, the everything as such, and we follow 2 week sprint cycle.
Thank you for that overview, Prashant. It's good to hear that you're familiar with agile methodologies and actively participate in sprint ceremonies. 2 week sprints are quite common and effective for many teams. Now, as we're nearing the end of our discussion, I have one more question for you. How do you stay updated with the latest trends and technologies in software engineering? What methods do you use to continue learning and improving your skills?
Right. So I follow a lot of technical blogs. I also have subscribed to tech channels on YouTube. And I often time to time, if I'm struggling with something and I'm not able to find anything in the on the internet or on YouTube, I go ahead and buy a course on these edtech sites like Udemy, and I keep myself updated with the current trends.
That's excellent. Prashant, it's clear that you're proactive about staying up to date with the latest trends and technologies in software engineering. Your approach of following technical blogs, YouTube channels, and even investing in courses when needed demonstrates a strong commitment to continuous learning and professional development. This is a valuable trait, especially in the rapidly evolving field of software engineering. Thank you for sharing all of this information about your experience and approach to work. Based on our conversation, I believe you could be a great fit for our team. I'd like to schedule you for a technical interview with our development team. Would you be available for this next step?
Sure. When?
Great, I'm glad you're interested in proceeding to the next step. Let me check our available time slots for the technical interview. We have openings on 1, next Tuesday at 10 a.m., 2, next Wednesday at 2 p.m., 3, midday at 2 p.m., 3, next Friday at 11 a.m. Which of these would work best for your schedule, Prashant?
How about next Friday, 11 a.m.?
Excellent choice, Prashant. Ashant, I've scheduled your technical interview for next Friday at 11 a.m. You'll receive an email shortly with all the details, including any preparation instructions and the format of the interview.
Perfect.
Do you have any questions about the...
No, 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 no questions.
Great. All right, Prashant. Thank you very much for your time today. We look forward to speaking with you further in the technical interview next Friday at 11 a.m. If any questions come up before then, please don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great day.
Sure.
And we'll see you soon.
You too. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye. So, as we just saw, we get asked a lot of technical questions, and I just got an invite, the calendar invite, and my interview is scheduled. So, a lot of these processes could be streamlined, and we will end up getting a lot of a better quality of people into the subsequent rounds. And often we end up, the other problem that we did not discuss earlier was the scale. So if we post a job, we get thousands of resumes posted on that same job link. And how do we filter across? And there are chances that we miss good candidates. There are chances that we, pick the unsuitable candidates over the suitable candidates, which could be easily avoided by utilizing this application that we have built. Thank you so much for your time. Have a nice day.